Welcome back to Insights, and today I have a very important message for everybody, but in particular for those of us that carry that forerunner calling in terms of helping alert the nation what's coming or what's likely taking place and why. And I specifically want to challenge you, whether you have this forerunner calling or not. I want to ask everybody watching this video to ask the Lord specifically what is going on in our nation. Ask Him for discernment so that we know what's going on now, but also that we can discern what's coming to our nation. Now, at least in my mind, I'm linking this to the last two videos where we've been talking about the secret to fruitfulness. The fruitfulness that comes forth from having the love of God in our hearts and having the purity of God in our hearts. It's a powerful combination, and with those two things being the desire of our hearts and the reality in our lives, now we move forward to speak out the message. And again, that forerunner message, as I approach it, it is what's coming to our nation and what do we need to alert the people to do or to be aware of. And by the way, I love what Dr. Michael Brown says. He says love warns. In other words, if we know something is going to create danger or destruction for other people, the loving thing to do is tell them. So in no way do I see warning the nation as a negative. I see it as an absolute necessity, but also the loving thing to do, and it must come on our part from a pure heart. Let's have that heart that we're loving people as we give this strong message to our nation. Now, I want to spend the next few moments, the rest of our time, simply highlighting a few areas that God has given me discernment in over these last few years, and areas that I would never have understood what God was calling me to say had He not given me this kind of insight. And then when He gives it to each of us, then we have the boldness to go out and speak it because we know this is from God and this is something He wants us to speak to other people. So here's a few examples from the last few years. First, I remember wondering what is going on. Why is there such a spiritual deadness, it seems? And it could be when we share our faith out in the broader culture, or it could even be within the church among believers. It seems like there's a haze. There's something wrong here. And I remember specifically seeking the Lord, and through the scriptures and then confirming it in other ways, God specifically showed us that we are fighting a spirit of stupor within the land. I would never have thought of it that way. I would have never understood it and all the particulars that go along with it. In fact, you can go to forerunnersofamerica.org and hit the store, and there you'll see 7 ways to defeat the stupor, because God took us down this path of how to become spiritually vibrant. So we want to be discerning, we want to understand the days in which we're living, and we want to help to alert other people. It's like in Ezekiel chapter 3, being a watchman on the wall. You see out on the horizon and you see what's coming. This is foundational to having a fruitful forerunner ministry. Another example, some months ago, I just sensed the Lord leading me to give more careful attention to the European Union and specifically to the country of France. Now, I don't have time to get into all the details and what this could mean or whatever, but there's something going on there. I would never have known this unless the Lord had given me that discernment. So we cry out to God and we say, God, what is going on in our nation? And I have found that God is more than willing to show us if we ask, if we believe Him for His insights. It's again being that watchman on the wall, but now we're not just looking out onto the horizon with our physical eyes, but we're seeing with our spiritual eyes, and God is revealing things to us. Another example, the whole idea that God is weighing nations today in the balance, His balances. It's found in Jeremiah chapter 18, verses 7 through 10. I would not have understood unless God began to answer my prayers. Lord, what's your now message? What do you want us to say? What's going on here? I wouldn't have understood that idea had not God just lifted that out of the scriptures and then started showing me how he has weighed nations throughout history. And not just biblical history, but weighing nations right now and throughout all of history. And so America is literally being weighed in the balance, God's balances right now, according to Jeremiah 18:7 through 10. Another part of this whole thing that when I'm out speaking and ministering, I often highlight is not only is there national difficulty ahead, but there's also a desire that God has to use his people, use the church to become dramatically more fruitful even now, but especially during a national shaking, to see a harvest come in, a massive harvest. Again, this isn't how I would have thought of it, that these things would happen potentially simultaneously. But nevertheless, these are some of the things that God has been opening my eyes to and moving me forward. Also, I believe that God is more than willing to give us insights like these and many others if we'll just seek him. In Jeremiah 23, it explains that the prophets, these ancient prophets of Israel, they did not spend time with God. They did not, therefore, know or discern what God was saying, and they were giving the people a false message. But we can walk this out in faith. We can understand what God is saying to our nation right now, and we can see a difference. And so 2 weeks ago, the love of God. Last week, being pure in heart, and what a powerful combination that is. And now today, to become the most fruitful that I can be this coming year, I want to discern what God is saying and ask him what he wants me to share with other people. Because remember, love warns. I look forward to being with you next week on Insights.